All right.
There we go. Right, we're going to go on now. Okay. We are now going live around the world. 3, 2, 1. We're now live.
And the time now on Chat and Spin Radio here in the UK is exactly 8 p.m. in the evening. And we've got our next guest on the line. Who's calling and where are you calling from?
My name is Claudette Milner, and I'm calling from Louisville, Kentucky, in the United States.
Claudette, now you're the author of Forgiven of Our Transgression series, Addiction and Forgiven of Our Transgressions. What God are you serving? So just tell us about that and what inspired you to write it as well.
I am a inspired writer by the Holy Ghost. And what happens is I simply sit down at the computer and I type whatever God gives me. The series started in January, and it started in January with Forgiven of Our Transgressions, and that was the from Psalms 32:1. And then as I moved forward, right now, as of September, there are 42 additions to this series. And so what has happened is it started with 3 different characters, and all of them were struggling. One was struggling, a Christian woman that was struggling with being married to her church instead of being married to her husband. It started with Darren, who was busy making a career out of women as opposed to focusing in on his career. And it was also a young woman who was leading a life that was going to get her fired from her job. And in the complexness of this series, what happens is each character blooms out into their own book as they go forth and try to find what is a Christian? What's the meaning of Christianity? What are the principles and values that Christianity asks for? And as they begin to explore, those 3 main characters developed into different characters. And from those characters, the books have just expanded over time. They all are published on Amazon.com. Amazon.com has been absolutely wonderful because they have allowed me to put out an ebook at night and have it done in about 3 or 4 hours. So this has been an exploration for me of Christianity. The one series that has seemed to catch hold has been the addiction series. And I want the viewers to understand that the addiction series starts with reuniting families. It goes from one family who the woman loses her children, and she loses her children not to foster care, but to her grandmother. And it's a series of things that she has to go through in order to get her children back. And so we have a different situation where she is caught with drugs. She ends up going to jail. The second in that series is a character within that particular context. And that particular context is a woman who loses her kids, her children, to foster care. So we explore the relationship between her children and her as she's struggling. And I think people don't understand that out of that character, we get Marvin. And Marvin is in addiction to incarceration. But the one thing that people may miss with Marvin is Marvin says this. He said, I know the women that I'm taking advantage of. are not truly Christians, because there is no God that would answer their prayers by sending in a man that would use them and abuse them. So he preys upon women who practice Christianity, except they don't live Christianity. And I think that's one of the things of all of this particular series. So when Marvin says that, he has a look about him that attracts women, but he also knows the scriptures. He quotes the scriptures. He uses the scriptures against them. And I think we look at in this addiction series, we look at all aspects. And one of the characters that we look at is the Marvin's dad, who is not addicted to anything, but he practices infidelity. And he has no shame. It's a business marriage, a business decision. So within this series, there are a Hispanic background, and that is directly related to my fight for DACA for the last, I think, from filming from 2006, when I was a TV host. I have fought for DACA. I have fought for a path to citizenship. And so you have that. And then you have a series, I had to look at it, on gentrification. But the addiction series, what happens with that is it comes into the book that says, what God are you serving? And I think we all have to look at that, because in there we have 3 definitions of idolatry. And we don't think that when we get up every morning and look at our cell phone or look at our computer, that we are committing idolatry. But we are not acknowledging God, and we depend more on that particular cell phone than we do God. And I know the interview, the last one, was rescheduled. But what happened when you rescheduled that interview, God had given me a series of things to do that day. And when I got off the phone, I said, you knew what was going to happen today, and yet you told me to reread this book. And when I reread it, something came out. It came out that this character, who is Marvin's dad, says, I do not trust God to run my business. I don't. I'm making the decisions based on my knowledge of what happens in my life, and God doesn't make decisions quick enough for me. And I have a business to run. So I am going to decide to move away from God. Because every day we get up, we make that decision. Every day is a new day. And are we going to walk toward God? Or are we going to handle everything and assume that we are in control? And this particular character in this particular book, the man and the woman, their God has been their business ever since they got married.
Claudette, if anyone wants to buy that book, What God Are You Serving? Where do people go?
They go to Amazon.com. They can still, it's under KDP, so they can still get the ebook, or they can choose to buy the book. And what I have told people is, with KDP Unlimited, and a lot of people don't know this, you can get 10 books at a time, read them, borrow them, put them back in, and get another book. And when you have an author like myself that has 42 editions of one book, and the ebooks are $4.99 unless you're, getting a Kindle special. And then some of them the books are $13.99 unless you catch me vending, and then you get a group special or you ask for a group special, and you can order them directly from me. And with this particular series, what I've noticed, looking even in the UK, that the books are falling in line with the series. They're falling in line with the series. If you want to have separated the forgiven of our transgressions, then you can go to my website, which is www.claudette, ClaudetteMilner.com. And under the tab About, you will see Forgiven of Our Transgressions series. And you will see the books listed from book 1 to book 42. So for young people, there are books for teens. There's urban life. There are characters that are LGBTQ. There are characters that are corporate America. And how does a Christian migrate through corporate America and still keep their integrity? And that's what that question asks. And how do they wait for God to direct their path through corporate America, as opposed to entering I'm going to reach the glass ceiling, thereby making that job their God?
Claudette, we'll have to leave it there. That's Claudette Milner on the line from Louisville, Kentucky in the USA. And thanks very much indeed, Claudette, and the very best of luck with what you're doing as well.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for the opportunity to interview. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now off, and you can stop your recording.